Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about the thing that screams, I never learned how to program properly. So let's get into it. So basically the question in question here is, Frederick, what screams that somebody has never learned how to program properly? I had to think about this a little bit because, this is the obvious question here would be, okay, well, you know how to write some basic code, but you can't really solve anything that is above changing already existing code, or you lack the ability to create your own things. You can only build on top of what somebody else has done. And these are absolutely things that I would say are relevant, but I will take a more close to heart example here because I had this incident. Well, I had this situation with a coworker at one point, where I was trying to explain basically a programming problem. So at that specific time we were working with a specific task. And I was trying to explain the analogy where basically we had an dependency injection, and there was an interface that then was required in order to inject into that dependency. So the basics of the story is in essence to create a new service that complies to that interface so that we can add that functionality for another customer. That's the whole story. And for anybody who for most people who know programming, who are professional programmers, this is a very straightforward task to do, a very straightforward thing to do. It's not all that complicated, you have an understanding because it's a more junior profile of a coworker and so forth. Anywho, but I try to I get asked about this, okay, so how do I do this? And I kind of go, well, you just have to create a class that complies to this interface, and then basically just inject it. That should be the whole story. And just, I get this look like I just spoke a language that they're not familiar with. And I kind of I don't really know what to say. So I'm like, all right, let's do the thing that I usually do. Let's go back to basics. Let's see how far back I have to go to explain this concept. So by the time I'm trying to explain what classes are and what inheritance is and what an interface is, basically the absolute basics of polymorphism to this person, I just have this deep regret in I get this really, really strong sensation that this person this person is so immensely lucky that there was no testing done to verify that this person knows this, because this is deeply embarrassing. This is deeply, deeply embarrassing for somebody who's supposed to be a professional programmer. If you don't know the basics of object-oriented programming, or you don't know what polymorphism is or inheritance or anything like that, that is these things are covered in the first few chapters of almost every programming book. This is the absolute bare bone basics of what most of us do. It's equivalent to a person not knowing how to swim or ride a bicycle, or maybe even more profound than that. But it's something that if I had to, it would be something that if it came up in the wrong situation during a coding test or an interview, it's very likely that would have cost you the job. And it's something that is deeply embarrassing to figure out at the later stage. We have very nice, in the wrong circumstances, there would have been serious repercussions for this sort of thing. And it's, if you don't know this, guys, I can't even, as I said, I was kind of dumbfounded. I just sat there when I had this realization. I couldn't, of course, call it out because nobody's ever going to admit something like that. I could have, of course, tested, but I could very clearly hear that this person has never learned anything about polymorphism or basic inheritance or object-oriented programming, and they don't really understand this. And this is, as I said, it was one of the first things that we covered back in my university days. We knew this by the first week, and it's been part of every single job I've had so far. and every friend I have know that every single programming coworker I have, apart from this person, knows this. It's really bad. It's beyond. It's like to the point where I find it. I can almost not really. I cannot, with good conscience, call this a professional programmer. I can't, because it's such a fundamental thing to know. It's like a doctor not knowing how to do CPR, or like it's one of the most core skills that you can imagine. So yeah, I would really say that if you don't know what this is and you want to be a programmer, go out and check this out immediately. It's extremely core information to have. So what I want you to take away from this is that, at least for me, the thing that screams that you don't know how to program, you never learned it properly, is if you lack these basic foundation, like these core skills. If you don't have something like this in your toolbox, then in my world you've never done serious programming. You cannot have, because anything that is just slightly above creating basic websites require you to know this sort of stuff. These tools have been invented years ago because they are basically it's one of the most foundational things that you need to know in order to produce software within the industry. As I said, and unless you're working on something that is truly trivial in comparison to what most of the industry is working on, you will know this. It would be a hard requirement. It's not something that is nice to have. It's something that you use pretty much every single day you work. And if you're not doing that, it's very likely that you are working with something that is quite a lot lower effort, or like subpar to what most of the industry is doing. Yeah, so knowing the basics of object-oriented programming would be my answer to this one. Have a great day.